Tim Jones is a passionate climate activist and author of a poetry collection called New Sea Land, published by Makaro Press in 2016, and the climate fiction novella Where We Land, published by the Cuba Press in 2019, with students from the Viterea Publishing course fellowship in 2022. Congratulations, Tim, on all your success. This novel is urgent, terrifying, and incredibly important. So thank you for sharing your work with us. I'd just also like to share a congratulations to the group from the Viterea Publishing who worked on this book. You should all be very proud of all that you've accomplished. Before the fun part, I'll let you know a few health and safety notes for the night. If there's a fire, please exit through the sliding doors to Willis Street and distance yourself well from the building. And you can also evacuate onto Victoria Street if you exit the side door. We ask that you congregate on Mercer Street and Victoria Street. If there is an earthquake, try and make your way through to the middle area of the shop. The shop's very safe, but the books are not. All right, so tonight we will hear from Paul McCullum, publisher, son of publisher, sorry, I don't know your opinion, at the Cuba Press, and Hayden Sculpt from Viterea Publishing. The book will be launched by Mandy Haga, and then we will hear from Tim Jones himself. After the speeches, Tim will be signing over at the counter where the books are available for purchase if you haven't already got one already. So can we please give a warm welcome to Paul.
Hey, Paul. Mary sends her apologies. She's feeling unwell tonight, so I'm going to read from her speech. So I was publisher at the Cuba Press and the project manager who worked with the team from Viterea to get emergency weather into the world. Thanks Unity for hosting us and Mandy for launching the book tonight. It's always fun and energizing to work with the students on a book, and this year was no different. The team were incredibly on the ball, working hard on every aspect of the book, from project management to copy editing to layout and design and marketing. Everything they did was top notch. And particularly the amazing cover designed by Josie Moon. The students were dogged and creative in following through with everything, including the marketing, which has been incredible, with Tim all over the media this week in Canvas on Newsroom and reviewed on ANZ Review of Books. Our huge thanks to Cadence, Josie Moon, Kate Broadley, Stephen Olsen, Tara Malone, Nikki Wilson, Betty Davis. They can't all be here tonight as they're on placement with publishers around the country, but if not, they're watching on live stream. And thanks to Odessa and Teresa, their tutors, for all they do to get us to the finish line. Thanks to the rest of the Cuba Press team, Mary and Sarah. We're proud to be launching an ambitious novel in election month about the politics and science of climate change and its impact on the lives of ordinary New Zealanders. We know it's making waves out there already because the Green Party magazine and Ngāti Porou radio are both wanting copies to review it. And an Auckland Review this morning described Tim's description of the interior of the beehive as a sort of Lovecraftian nightmare, which means your work is done, Tim. This is not the first time we've worked with Tim. We've produced his poetry and a novella, all of which have had climate activism at their heart. He's a real professional to deal with, works brilliant to a deadline, and thinks hard about every aspect of the book, including marketing. And he worries about things other authors don't think about. Tim's anxiety while going through the storms has been that reality might outpace his novel before it hits the bookshops. And this is not his only anxiety. And here's a message we received from Tim one day. The Auckland Airport flooding has already made me think of some minor improvements to the chapter where Ali is stuck in a flooded Wellington Airport, which is good news for my country. The other way around. Which is good news for my novel, not so much for our country. Anyway, well done, Tim. Thanks for sailing with the Cuba Press in the fair wind and foul. And now we have Cadence.
It's really high. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Cadence tōku ingoa. I'm here from the Whitireia Publishing Program. Mary let me know that they would like some words from one or two of the emergency weather project managers. And my other two project managers, Kate Broadley and Josie Moon, are currently in Auckland. So I very quickly realized that it was going to be me talking. So I'm really sorry if this is a little rough. I've never launched a book before, but I don't think I'm being graded on this. So I think it'll be fine. I was lucky enough to be put onto two teams for emergency weather. I was on the project management and I also did the marketing. So if you read any Instagram posts from Tim's account that sounded like they were trying a little too hard to emulate like a cool climate activist author guy, that's because we were writing them. But it's been really wild and really fun. In total, there were 7 of us working on the book together, but none of us had ever made a book before. We edited, designed, publicized, and proofread. Josie created the incredible front cover of the book, which you can see from like a country mile away. Stephen, Tara, and Kate took red pens to the manuscript and they edited with great care. Nikisa and Stephen typeset the entire novel from scratch. And Betty and I overcame our joint fear of cold calling. We're all really proud of the final results. And additionally, if you would like to hear more about the process, we are doing a lunchtime event with Tim and the Cuba Press at Unity on the 18th of October, and we'll have a little discussion about it. I just want to say a quick thank you to Mary and Paul for their guidance through tight deadlines and for all of their insider knowledge. Did you know that Valhalla is too sticky to launch a book from? I didn't know, but it's good to know. And thank you to Odessa Owens and Teresa Credson, who are our tutors at Whitireia, for your excellent teaching and support. Never underestimate the power of an industry professional reading an email you've just written over your shoulder and telling you, yeah, that sounds normal, you can send that. It's really helpful. And last but not least, thank you so much to Tim for maintaining an awesome sense of humor and always making time for us to meet up and brainstorm, no pun intended. You set the bar incredibly high for author interactions. Thank you for all the work you've done on this novel, especially on our publicity campaign. Like we had this guy doing podcasts, Wellington City Live interviews. He was writing articles overnight. Tim, you're a force of nature. Congratulations on launching your book. And I'd like to invite Mandy Howard to launch.
Well done.
I'm even shorter. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Mandy Haga aho, e noho ana aho, ki raumati ki te tonga ki Kapiti. It's my great weather, an important book, one that deserves to be shared far and wide. At the first of the televised leaders' debates for the upcoming election the other week, the Battle of the Chris's, both men were asked what they were doing personally to help combat climate change. Unsurprisingly, answers stalled after the predictable reply of recycling and driving an electric car. Mr. I used a limo to cross the road Luxon also talked about more EV charge stations, no doubt a great money earner for his corporate mates. And Mr. I know a wealth tax would help, but I'm not brave enough Hipkins. Added something bland about our 2050 emissions targets, forcing Luxon to agree he supported this too, but not at the expense of farming and agriculture, and no guarantees if their evil twin act has any say in it. Meanwhile, in the real world of real people, the news cycle has taken up reporting horrifying climate events happening all over the world, impacting tens of thousands of people on a daily basis. And many of us are fighting extreme climate-induced grief and a sense of desperation that colours everything. I look at my little grandchildren and despair about the world they are inheriting, wondering how any right-minded parent is not out there marching to demand urgent and radical action to help insulate them from the horrors to come. Tim, however, is one of the people who truly does this and who has fought for decades to protect our environment. Unlike our posturing politicians who view the world through moolah-tinted spectacles, Tim is the real deal, an activist who uses his knowledge and passion creatively to shape stories that not only dare to look the dragon in the eye, but also put ordinary people in the frame, showing how the horrors will impact us in an attempt to stop us sleepwalking into extinction. Fiction is the perfect tool for this. The old guru of scriptwriting, Robert McKee, used to say, "In case ideas is in an emotion," and this is exactly what fiction is good at. It doesn't tell us how to think and feel, it shows us the impacts and the very personal fears of the characters involved. Through these characters, we experience it, engaging our emotions as well as our critical thinking, imagining ourselves into the story and considering how we might act in a similar situation. Until we've engaged emotionally in climate change action, personally engaged, it will only ever be a thing out there. Even as we watch people in our own country lose their livelihoods and homes, unless we're directly affected, we still refuse to join the dots. I'm incredibly grateful that Tim has joined the dots with such great skill and urgency, and that Cuba Press has not shied away from these truths, allowing him the scope to talk about the issue here with the clarity and the frustration and anger it deserves. I found myself nodding in agreement in so many places and sometimes cheering at the honesty. Take this, for example, which I'm sure will resonate with many of you. Ahead, up one more steep but short climb lay the mast that was kept in operation for those who remained loyal to broadcast TV, to the concept that the half-digested visual mush they were fed at 6 p.m. in some way resembled news. Royal shenanigans, crime news and lavish detail, a quick roundup of the latest climate disasters, then sport and weather, all sponsored by fossil fuel companies and rest home providers. Or this from page 39. The rhetoric was great, that Zero Carbon Act had provided the framework for actions. Ministers made bold speeches at international conferences. Sweeping new legislation was promised and soon. But when it came down to actual action on the ground, nothing really changed. The illusion of economic growth, the giant shadow cast by greed on the planet's future, still held sway, and the oil and gas and coal permits were still granted thanks to legislative loopholes, and whatever the policy document said, the government somehow always managed to find money for new motorways. And two last ones. This one is, but they hadn't been forced to change because not changing was much more comfortable, and because the prophets of doom, PROFITS, beat the prophets, PROPHETS, of doom every time. For every fact, there were 100 lies. For every graph, there were 1,000 empty memes, 1 million Instagram posts of pathetic polar bears perched on vanishing icebergs had utterly failed to trouble the leviathans of the fossil fuel industry, who continued to bank their windfall profits and sail away in their super yachts. The fossil fuel execs had been fully aware of the consequences of their actions for decades, and their response had been to take up the tobacco industry playbook, deny, deflect, and delay. Because Tim is a truth teller, there is, of course, no happy Disney ending, spoiler alert. Though neither is it an Eleanor Catton, Burnham Wood, and then they all died. Because it's much more complicated than that, and we're far more likely to go out, as T.S. Eliot said in his poem The Hollow Man, not with a bang, but with a whimper. But we're not there yet, and this is the whole point of writing a book like this, to shake up our complacency and really finally act. The discussion needs to go door to door, and this book is a good vehicle to do that. Buy one for every member of your family, your neighbours, the mayor, your local MP, the farmer down the road. Leave it at bus stops for serendipitous pickups. Press it into hands of teenagers. Gift it to the wife of your redneck mate. And talk about it. Talk and talk and talk and talk, like the character Ellie, one of the survivors of a terrifying storm. This is the final quote. She told them about that afternoon, about how delayed passengers and airport staff had helped the lost, the scared and the wounded, as the terminal shook and boomed under the immense weight of the wind. How scared she'd been, how grateful to the emergency services who had battled through the floods to reach them. She told them about the devastation she had seen when the waters receded enough that they could be evacuated. More than anything, that's what brought it home to me, she said, seeing those rows of wooden houses in Rongotai with water up to their windows. We built for a planet that was subservient to our needs. That was never true, and it's certainly not true anymore. Thank you, Tim, for never giving up the good fight, and Cuba Press for aiding you. Kia kaha. With that, I declare emergency weather launch.
Kia ora koutou, ko Tim Jones, ahau. I am so glad to see you all here. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Just very happy right now, but I'm going to try and stick to my speech all the same. So thank you so much for attending the launch of Emergency Weather. And thank you especially to those who've spoken before me, Kate, Paul, Cadence, and Mandy. My aim in writing Emergency Weather was to write a climate fiction novel that's set in the near future in Aotearoa and features people dealing with the climate crisis as it crashes into business as usual. Lots of climate fiction is post-apocalyptic. This novel isn't. It's right here and pretty much right now. My first, very early draft outline of this novel dates from 2017. At that time, I thought it would be set 5 to 10 years in the future. But as work on the novel continued, and as you've already heard, I increasingly feared it would be overtaken by events. That would be bad for the novel, but much worse for the world. It hasn't happened yet. Here, at least. Not quite. But when I think about Cyclone Gabrielle, or bushfires in October, or collapsing sea ice in Antarctica, it's been a close-run thing. My characters, Stephanie in particular, wrestle with hope and despair. Now, I think encouraging other people to despair is morally wrong, whatever one feels oneself. But hope is also a thin reed. And my personal view, and again, this is borne out in what Mandy said about the book, that though the climate crisis is getting rapidly worse, it is still possible to act to make things better than they otherwise would be. Not despair, not even hope, action. But for now, enough of the heavier stuff. It has taken many hands to help this novel see the light of day. So I have lots of people I'd like to thank. You've already heard thanks to some of them, but they deserve to be thanked again. Some of the people I'm going to thank are here, and others may be watching on. He performed a smooth manoeuvre.
To mark pages.
So, many people have provided support, advice, and help during the creation and development of this novel. My thanks go first of all to my partner Kay and my son Gareth, who've been there throughout for me and put up with my various writerly enthusiasms and despairs. And I have to say, ever since I wrote that, the volume of both has increased as the launch has got closer. My sister Sarah Jones has also been a great source of both encouragement and advice. Latika Vassal and Harvey Malloy provided invaluable feedback on early drafts of this material and on the process of getting Emergency Weather ready for publication. I'd like to thank Sonia Antonson, Anne Harray and Jenny Campbell for their support, and Melanie Vautier for convincing me that I wasn't exaggerating the dangers of Rabbit Pass. It's always a pleasure to work with the Cuba Press. Mary McCullum, Paul Stewart and Sarah Bolland, together with their interns, are a great publishing team. And I have to say, this next phrase suggests to me I should have gone into advertising years ago, but it's true. Professional expertise plus the personal touch is the perfect combination. True. And I want to give special thanks to Cassie Hart for carrying out a thoughtful and much appreciated sensitivity read of the manuscript. The team at Whitireia Publishing have played a key part in getting this novel into your hands. I've enjoyed working with Cadence, with Josie Moon, Kate Broadley, Stephen Olson, Tara Malone, Becky Davis and Nikisa Wilson on the editing, marketing and production of Emergency Weather. And I'd especially like to thank Josie for the wonderful cover design, and Ebony Lamb for the author photo. I'm far from the ideal photographic subject, but she made the process a pleasure. If any of you know what I'm like about having my photo taken, making the process a pleasure is high praise. I'm very grateful to the New Zealand Society of Authors, Te Puni Kaituhi o Aotearoa, for awarding me their Peter and Diane Beatson Fellowship in 2022, which allowed me time and space to focus on the revision process. Thank you to the judges and to Peter Beatson and Claire Hill. Now, just not long to go now. He was happy to see this display was still working, especially if we go the right way around. Oh yes, sorry, and I forgot to thank Kate and Unity Books for hosting this launch. Now, those selections that Mandy read do a great job of highlighting some of the political thinking in the novel. And as an aside, folks, there's an election on. Vote climate, do not get distracted. But this is a novel. It's about people, 3 people in particular, Ali, Stephanie, and Zeke, and their friends and whānau. I'm going to read, I've never actually read the very start of something at a launch before, but I'm going to read the very start of the novel. Ali's husband, Bill, has been detained and she's waiting for him. From chapter 1, boldly headlined, Ali. She looked at the cheap plastic clock. She looked at her phone. 4 hours. He'd been locked up in there for 4 hours. Ali had spent most of that time in the police station foyer, sitting on the uncomfortable seats, staring at the walls, flicking through magazines, thumbing through her socials, checking the law, checking stuff. No cell phone videos, no anxious messages, no cabinet minister's brother in bank punch-up headlines. Not yet, anyway. A change of shifts. The woman behind the counter was replaced by a different woman behind the counter. Both were friendly, professional, uninformative. They're processing him now. I don't know whether he'll be charged. He won't be released here. He'll be released into the alley at the side of the building. You can wait for him outside the metal door. Ali got up every few minutes to go out into the autumn cold and look for him. He would be tired, disoriented, hungry, angry. The third time she went into the alley, while she was standing there trying to decide whether inside or outside was worse, the heavy door opened and a man stepped out. For a moment she thought, but no, this man was younger, close-cropped hair, tattoos. The man looked at her. She looked at the man. He shook his head, and as she watched, feeling utterly out of her depth and utterly helpless, a car pulled up. A woman leaned over and opened the passenger side door, and the man got in. They drove away. Ali stood in the alley for another 5 minutes, then went back inside. She got some snacks from the vending machine, a bag of chips, a bag of salted cashews. They're going to release him from custody in 10 minutes, the woman behind the counter told her. Ali went outside again. For 25 minutes, she paced up and down, trying to keep herself warm. Bill emerged without warning into the alley, holding his trousers up with his left hand, his right clutching a plastic bag containing his possessions and his belt. As the door shut behind him with a clang, she had a split-second impression of a burly, bored policeman. So, if I thought about the live stream, I wouldn't have kept doing that. Sorry, live stream people. So, what did Bill do? How will Ali react? What happens next? Read on to find out. It's so lovely to see you all here, and thank you for coming. Now, the next instruction in the run sheet for this event is take author to signing spot. Now, I now know where the signing spot is, and it's not like something scary, so that's good. So please don't leave me alone over there. Bring your book to be signed, and let's chat some more. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you all for joining. joining us this evening. As Tim said, please join him over at the signing counter. There's, of course, books for sale, and feel free to have another drink and mingle. Thank you again. Congratulations, and thanks to our speakers this evening. Thanks.